Look at solving linear equations and throw in just a couple of different types of questions here. So review of what we talked about last day. We're going to solve and check this linear equation. So collecting like terms means that we're going to put all of our variables on one side. So we're going to move our 11y over to the left where it becomes a minus. Remember, we always change the operation when we change sides of the equal sign. So 8y minus 11y equals negative 19 plus 7. So we get negative 3y. Remember, the y's do not change, just the number of them change. And negative 19 plus 7, we get negative 12. And negative 12 divided by negative 3, remember it was multiplying over here, becomes dividing on the opposite side. Negative divided by negative gives us a positive, so y is equal to 4. Now, notice that we also needed to check our solution. As we talked about last day, we do our left side, right side separately. So 8y minus 7 is the left side of our equal sign. 11y minus 19 is the right side of our equal sign. So subbing in our solution, we've got 8 times 4 minus 7. So 32 minus 7 means that we have 25 on the left-hand side. On the right-hand side, we're going to have 44 minus 19, which is 25 as well. So, as we talked about last day, we must have our therefore statement, why we did it and what it means. So since left side equals right side, we have verified we know y is equal to 4. Example number 2, we want to solve. So notice that we don't have solve and check. We don't have to do a physical left side, right side check, but it doesn't mean that we don't want to double check it in the equation, mentally at least. So example number 2a, 49 over 28 equals 21 over y. As we talked about yesterday, the best way to solve for this one is to do our cross multiplying. We cannot solve for a variable on the bottom, so we're going to start by taking our y over to the left where it becomes multiplying, and we're going to take our 28 over to multiply by 21. When we do that, we get 588. And we're going to do our last step here then. We want to get rid of the 49 on the left side, becomes dividing on the opposite side, which means that y is equal to 12. 2/5 x equals 7. Now, a couple of different ways we could do this. We talked about yesterday. We could take the bottom of our fraction, as long as there is only one expression on the left, we can take the 5 over and multiply. Probably the best way to approach this is to clear the fraction, which means that we're going to get rid of our denominator first. So we're going to multiply both sides by 5 so that our 5's cancel. Multiplying by 5 and dividing by 5 cancel each other out. So 2x equals 35. And then we're going to divide by 2, which means that x is equal to 35 over 2, and that doesn't simplify as a fraction, so we can leave it like that, or we can write it as 17.5 because we don't have to round it. It's still the exact answer. We haven't had to change anything. Part C. Again, we still want to clear our fraction, but we need to multiply by the common denominator. And sorry, this worksheet should be, we're going to change that to 5 over 3. Now, in order to clear fractions, we need a common denominator. So in order to clear all the fractions, we want to multiply by a number that will cancel all of our denominators. So lowest common denominator here, if we were going to change 3, we could change it to 18. So we want to use this lowest common denominator, and we're going to multiply all the pieces of our equation by that number. So multiplying every part, even if it's just a plain old number, we cannot change the balance of the equation. The equation has to stay equal, which means they all have to be multiplied by the same thing. So multiplied by 18 divided by 18 cancels, and we're left with 11x minus 36. And over here, we know that 18 can be thought of as 18 over 1. If we multiply our numerators and then divide by 3, or we can simplify diagonally that 18 divided by 3 gives us 6. And 6 times 5 means that we get 30. We can also think 8 times 5 is 90. 90 divided by 3 gives us 30. So 11x, we're going to take our 36 over to the other side. And then we're going to take our 66 and divide by the 11 out front of the x. So x is equal to 6. Part D, again, same thing as we had for C. We want to multiply by a common denominator. Well, our lowest common denominator for this one would be 6. We would change those denominators to 6. So that's exactly what we're going to multiply all of our terms by. Now the only thing we want to watch here is that we have more than one term inside the brackets, and that's okay. We're going to approach this exactly the same way. So everything gets multiplied by 6. And again, the whole point of this was to eliminate our denominators. So 6 over 1, we simplify diagonally. 6 divided by 2 leaves us with 3. 6 divided by 3 leaves us with 2. 6 divided by 3 again leaves us with 2. Now we just need to make sure that we use our distributive property, which means that we have to multiply everything in the brackets by the number out front. Now again, paying attention to that we have a subtract, we're going to subtract both terms inside this second set of brackets, which changes both of our signs. And our last one, 2x plus 10, everything in there gets multiplied by 5. And we're going to take all of our variables to one side, all of our numbers to the other, remembering that we're changing the operations as well. So we get negative x equals 1. Now we got to get rid of this negative in front of the x, which means that we can think about this as dividing both sides by negative 1, which means that x has to be equal to negative 1. And last example for today, again, as soon as we see these questions, anything with fractions, and sorry, there should be an equals in here. So anytime we see fractions, we look for our lowest common denominator. So our lowest common denominator here, if we were going to change these, is 12. So that's what we're going to multiply each part of our equation by 12. Every single part, whether it's a fraction or not. And simplify. So 12 divided by 4 leaves us with 3. 12 divided by 2 leaves us with 6. 12 divided by 3 is 4. So we're going to have 3x minus 6 equals 4x plus 24. Taking everything over to one side, all our variables on one side, numbers on the other, changing our operations as we do. We know that negative x is equal to 30. Dividing both sides by -1 means that we're pretty sure x is equal to -30. So again, notice that our question asked us to check. So we have to do our left side, right side check first before we can state that we know that our solution is correct. So we're going to have 1/4 times -30 minus 1/2. And we're going to have -30 over 4 minus 1/2. And we notice that we can get a common denominator, or we can simplify our first fraction. So we get -15 over 2. We're reducing our fraction here. Both top and bottom can be divided by 2. So -15 minus 1 means -16 over 2, which gives us -8. On the other side, 1/3 times -30 plus 2. And 1/3 of -30 is -10, or thinking about it as -30 over 1, multiplying 1 times -30 over 3. And we notice that our right-hand side is also equal to -8. So since left side equals right side, therefore we know for sure that x is equal to -8. We've proven that it has to be the case. Okay, so you have some questions on your